Hello everyone, this is Mr. McMillan and I'm here with an answer key video for the test review on parallel lines and transversals. So this first page is basically a summary sheet of everything that we've done for the most part. And it says, look at the diagram below, complete the chart based on the diagram shown, and complete each sentence with the correct words and or phrases. Okay. So down here, we see we have a little graphic organizer for our parallel lines and transversal special angle pairs. Okay, and so we're going to fill this out, and then you should definitely be trying the problems that are following this. I think there's 20 problems in this because it's very similar to the test questions. Okay, so corresponding angles. Corresponding angles are on the same side of the transversal, where one angle is in the interior and one is in the exterior. So they're in matching locations. And corresponding angles, are they congruent or are they supplementary? Well, corresponding angles are congruent. Okay, and remember that congruent means they are equal in measure. So let's look at the pairs in the diagram. So remember, they have to be on the same side of the transversal. One angle has to be in the interior and one is in the interior, and they are congruent. So if we look here, apologies for the lights, starting early today, I guess. So if we look here at angle 1, what we're looking for is an angle that's on the same side of the transversal. This is in the exterior, so that means we need the one that's in the interior that's on the same side, and that would be angle 4. And remember, they switch between intersections. So angle 1 is congruent to angle 4. Okay, then we look at 3. We see that 3 is corresponding with 2. 7 is corresponding with 6. And 5 is corresponding with 8. And you'll notice they are in matching locations. If you were to slide these two intersections together, you would see that the corresponding angles would overlap. So 5 and 8 would overlap, 7 and 6, so on and so forth. All right. Next up is alternate interior angles. Now, alternate, the word alternate means opposite. Okay, so these are not going to be on the same side. They're going to be on the opposite sides, the transversal. Both angles are in the, well, it tells us pretty much right here in the angle name, right? It tells us that they are alternate interior. So both angles are going to be in the interior. And these angles are also congruent. Okay, so let's look at our diagram. Okay, so we're looking for ones that are on opposite sides of the transversal, where both of them are in the interior. And so when you're talking about the interior, you're talking about inside here, inside this box, essentially. Okay. Anything outside of here is the exterior. Okay, so let's look at angle 3. We're looking for something that's on the opposite side of the transversal, that's on the interior and is on the other intersection. So 3 and 6 are congruent. They're alternate interior angles. And then we see from angles 4, we see angle 5 would be congruent as well. It would be alternate interior. Okay. Next up, alternate exterior. Alternate again means they are on opposite sides of the transversal. Both angles are in the, well, it says here alternate exterior angles. So both angles are in the exterior. If you're talking about the exterior, you're talking about the outside. And alternate exterior angles, just like alternate interior angles, are congruent. Okay, so this time, looking at our diagram, we're seeing that we have to look for opposite sides of the transversal with angles in the exterior. So the angles we're going to focus on is 1, 7, 2, and 8. They're all in the exterior. So let's look at angle 1. What is alternate exterior with angle 1? Well, it's got to be on the other intersection. It's going to be on the opposite side, also in the exterior. So that means we're looking at angle 8. So angle 1 and angle 8 are alternate exterior. And by that same logic, 7 and 2 are alternate exterior. Okay. Next up is the same side consecutive interior angles. So as the name implies, same side, they're on the same side of the transversal. Both angles are in the interior. And unlike the other ones that we've talked about so far, these are supplementary. And remember that supplementary means they sum to 180 degrees. Okay, so we have to look at the same side of the transversal, and they both have to be in the interior. So we're going to be looking again at 3, 4, 5, and 6. They need to be on the same side of the transversal on different intersections. They have to go across the intersections. So if we look at angle 3, we can see on the same side, also in the interior, it has to be angle 4. So angle 3, so the measure of angle 3 plus the measure of angle 4 is equal to 180. You can just write 3 and 4. I'm just writing it out like I normally do. And then you can see 5 and 6 are also same side interior angles. Okay. Next up, we have same side consecutive exterior angles. And the reason I'm putting consecutive in here is because sometimes on a test or quiz or whatever else, you will see it written as consecutive instead of same side. So you need to know that same side means the exact same thing as consecutive. So these angles are on the same side of the transversal. Both angles are in the exterior. And just like same side interior angles, these are also supplementary. So if we look here at our diagram, angle 1 is in the exterior, so we need one that's on the same side from the different intersection that's also on the exterior, so that has to be angle 2. And we can also see that angle 7 and 8 follow that exact same logic. So the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 is equal to 180. And the measure of angle 7 plus the measure of angle 8 is equal to 180 degrees. All right, vertical angles. Now, if you recall from the flow chart, these first 5 require you to have different intersections. These 2 require you to have the same intersection. Okay, so vertical angles, the angles are opposite or across from one another. Okay, and vertical angles are always congruent. They're always congruent. It doesn't matter if the lines are parallel or not. Okay, they're always congruent because they only rely on the one intersection. So if we look at our diagram here, let's look at angle 1. What angle is across from angle 1? Well, we see that 3 and 7 share a side with it, so they can't be across from it. So that means angle 5 and angle 1 are vertical angles. Then we can see from our diagram as well that angles 3 and 7 are vertical, And then looking at our other intersection, 4 and 8, and 2 and 6. Okay, so we're just going to write those down real quick. So angle 1 is congruent to angle 5. Angle 3 is congruent to angle 7. Angle 4 is congruent to angle 8. And angle 2 is congruent to angle 6. And then finally, our last type of angle pair is a linear pair. And these, as the name implies, linear means line. They share a side and form a line. These angles are always supplementary. Okay. So if we look up here in our diagram, let's go back to angle 1. What angles share a side with angle 1? Well, we see angle 1 and 3 share a side, but we also see the angle 1 and 7. Both of those pairs are linear pairs. Okay, do you see how if I covered up the line here, or covered up those other two angles, we can see the angles 1 and 7 form a line. Okay, so angles 1 and 7 form a line. Now I'm just going to list these out. You can verify them on at your leisure, but we have angle 1 and angle 3. We have angle 5 and angle 7. Angle 3 and angle 5. And angle 1 and angle 7. Then on the other intersection, we have angle 4 and angle 2. Angle 2 and angle 8. Angle 8 and angle 6. And finally, angle 6 and angle 4. Okay, so those are our linear pairs. Remember, they are supplementary. I just didn't want to have to write out the, like I did here with these. Okay, so make sure that you know how to determine your linear pairs, you know, vertical angles, same sides, all that stuff. But I also want you to be aware that any time that you have an obtuse angle and an acute angle, regardless of where they're positioned, any combination of obtuse and acute angle are supplementary. So for example, 2 and 5 are supplementary. 4 and 7 are supplementary. 3 and 8 are supplementary. 1 and 6 is supplementary. 1 and 2 is supplementary, so on and so forth, okay? So make sure that you're aware of that. All right, so the rest of this video is meant for you guys to check your answers, see step-by-step instructions on the other problems. So if you have not completed the test review problems, or at least attempted them, I would really appreciate you do that before you continue on with the video, okay? All right, so continuing on, we're gonna look at the problems that we have here. So number 1 says lines A and B are cut by transversal R. Which of the following would prove that A is parallel to B? Okay, so we're trying to prove that these two lines are parallel. So we're going to go through each of these things, right? And we're going to be using the special angle pairs properties, whether they should be congruent or supplementary or not. So answer choice A, angle 6 is congruent to angle 8. So we look at angle 6 and 8. Now, angles 6 and 8 are vertical angles. If you recall from when I talked about this in another video, vertical angles cannot be used to prove that lines are parallel. Even though these two angles should be congruent, they cannot be used. Okay, so this is vertical, cannot be used. So we cannot use that. Even though that statement is true, it would not prove that A is parallel to B. So let's look at answer choice B. We have angle 4 and 5. Well, what type of angles are angles 4 and 5? Well, 4 and 5 are on the same side of the transversal, and they're both in the interior. So these are same side interior angles. Now, should same side interior angles be congruent? No. Just like we discussed a little bit earlier, they should be supplementary. So we know that B cannot work either. C, angle 2 is congruent to angle 7. We have 2 and 7, they're on the same side of the transversal, and one's in the exterior, well, both are on the exterior. So we're dealing with same side exterior. And just like the last one, they should be supplementary. So we know that C can't be right. Let's look at D. We know it has to be our answer, but let's look at it anyway. Angles 1 and 7. 1 and 7 are on the opposite sides of the transversal, and they're both in the exterior. So these are alternate exterior angles, and they indeed should be congruent, which is what our statement says. So remember, this means congruent. That's what that symbol means, the equal with the tilde over it. Okay. Number 2, transversal Z cuts through lines Q, R, S, and T, which is a true statement based on the diagram below. Now, the easiest way to do a problem like this is to just fill out your intersections and see which match up. So to be parallel, the intersections must match exactly. They must match exactly, okay? So we're gonna fill in these and we're gonna use the properties of vertical angles and linear pairs to do that. So let's focus on Q's right now. So 119, this angle will also be 119 because they're vertical. These two angles are a linear pair as well as these two, so we know that both of these have to be the same. So we take 180 and subtract 119 and we get 61 degrees for both of them. I'm going to go ahead and fill out S because I see another 61 here. Okay. I'm going to fill out R's now. So 57, this is 57 as well because they're vertical. 180 minus 57 gives us 123. And then we see the same thing happen for T. So which intersections match exactly? Well, we have two pairs that match exactly, as you know, evident in our answer choices here. So we can see that Q and S match up exactly. So Q is parallel to S. But we can also see that R matches up with T exactly. So R is also parallel to T. And if you look at your answer choices, you'll see that A is the one that lists both of those possibilities. Let's look at number 3. If L is parallel to K, what is the value of X? So anytime you start a problem like this, whether you're solving for X or whatever else you're doing, you need to look and see, excuse me, sorry. You need to look and see what type of angles they are, okay? So let's look at these two angles. Where are these angles located? Well, they are located both in the exterior. And here's our transversal. One's on the left side and one's on the right side. So they're opposite sides of the transversal. That means that they're alternate exterior angles. And if you remember, alternate exterior angles should be congruent. Remember that congruent means equal in measure. Well, if these two angles should be congruent, in order to set up my equation, I need to take this angle and set it equal to the other one. So 14x minus 32 equals 8x plus 52. I'm going to add 32 to both sides. 14x equals 8x plus 84. Subtract 8x from both sides. We get 6x is equal to 84. Divide both sides by 6. And I believe that we find x to be 14. Let me check one quick second. Yes, it is 14. Okay. You can also plug that back in. If you plug that back in, these two should be exactly the same, okay? Because we know they have to be congruent. Number 4, if angle 7, so we're looking here, and is congruent to angle 9, so here, determine which lines, if any, must be parallel. Justify your answer. So 7 and 9 here. Well, 7 is attached to M and C. and 9 is attached to N and C. So we see that our angles are attached to lines C, M, and N. Now, which one of those is the transversal, C, M, or N? Well, as we can see, C would be our transversal. So C is the transversal. That light is going to be the end of me. Okay. So now we have to determine, well, they're congruent. So remember, they have to either be corresponding, alternate interior or alternate exterior in order for this statement to be true and to justify any of these being parallel. Well, if we look 7 and 9, they're on opposite sides of the transversal and both are in the interior. So they are alternate exterior or alternate interior, excuse me. So by the alternate interior angles theorem, the two lines that have to be parallel are M and N. Remember, C was the transversal. Now on, actually one of the questions on here, you may have multiple answer choices. Okay, so make sure you watch out. And sometimes they'll say that C and D should be parallel instead of M and N by the same theorem. So watch out for that. Next up, number 5. Number 5 says a table and its legs are attached and create an angle that measures 50 degrees. What must the measure marked X be to make the table and ground parallel? So in other words, you're trying to see if you extended this line. We already have a line down here, but I'm just going to do it. And then you had here, this is your transversal here. This diagonal line here, right? So we know that both of these angles are in the interior, right? If they're both in the interior, look at your transversal. Are they on the same side of the transversal or opposite sides? Well, we see that 50 is here, X is here, so they're on the same side. And these would be same side interior angles. And if you remember, same side interior angles are supplementary. So that means X has to equal 180 minus 50. So X is equal to 130 degrees. That would make the table and ground parallel. All right, number 6. It says given F is parallel to G, which is parallel to H, if the measure of angle 8 is equal to 9x plus 8, and the measure of angle 9 is equal to 6x plus 17, what is the measure of angle 4? Okay, so we're looking for angle 4, but we're only given 8 and 9. Well, we can see, if you look here, 8 and 9 are alternate interior angles. They're on opposite sides of the transversal, and they're both in the interior. So they have to be congruent. Well, look at angle 4. Let's compare it to angle 8, for example. Do you notice that these two angles are corresponding? So that means that 4 is congruent to 8 as well. So if we find 8 or 9, we can also find 4. Well, we said they're congruent, so that means we're going to take angle 8, set it equal to angle 9. So 9x plus 8 equals 6x plus 17. Then we're going to solve for x. So I'm going to subtract my 8 over, and I get 9x equals 6x plus 9. Subtract 6x from both sides, and you get 3x is equal to 9. Then you divide both sides by 3, and you get x is equal to 3. Notice that we are not done yet. It asks for the measure of angle 4. X is not the measure of angle 4. But remember, we did say angle 4 is the same as 8 and 9. So we can just plug it into either one of these and get our answer. So the measure of angle 4, I'm just going to use 9x plus 8. So 9x plus 8. So this is 9 times 3 plus 8, which is 27 plus 8, which is 35 degrees. So the measure of angle 4, and let me make sure that's correct. Yes, it is. So the measure of angle 4 is 35 degrees. All right, number 7. Number 7 says which pair of angles must be supplementary for line P to be parallel to line R. If you remember, there are 3 different types of angle pairs that are supplementary, but only 2 can be used to prove it. The ones that can be used to prove that lines are parallel are same side interior angles and same side exterior angles. Linear pairs cannot be used. So linear pairs cannot. Okay, so let's look through our answer choices. Angle 1 and angle 2. Well, angle 1 and angle 2, they are supplementary, but do you notice they're a linear pair? So since they're a linear pair, we cannot use them. Angle 3 and angle 4. Angle 3 and angle 4, they're on the same side, but one's in the interior and one's in the exterior. So that means they're corresponding. They would be congruent if the lines are parallel. So we can't use that. Angle 2 and angle 5, we see that they're on opposite sides of the transversal and they're both in the interior. So these are alternate interior angles, but these would also be congruent if the lines were parallel. But finally, we have angle 3 and angle 5. And if we look at angle 3 and angle 5, we see that they're on the same side, both in the interior. So these are same side interior angles, and D would work just fine. Okay. All right, number 8. In the figure, line segment LT and line segment KR are parallel, and the measure of angle R is equal to 103 degrees. What is the measure of angle T? So I'm going to go ahead and put an X on angle T, and I'm also going to go ahead and put 103 degrees on angle R. I'm also going to extend these lines. I know these 2 lines are parallel, which would make this segment here a transversal. Well, if we look at these types of angles now, we can see that they are same side interior angles. So they are supplementary. So that means what we're going to do is we're going to take our angle R and subtract it from 180 to get the measure of angle T. So 180 minus 103, that gives us 77 degrees as the measure of angle T. Okay. All right, number 9. Number 9 says lines B, C, and D are intersected by transversal A. The measures of some of the angles that are formed are shown. Which of the statements below about lines B, C, and D are true? Remember what you are doing. You are looking for intersections that match exactly, okay? So we're going to fill out these intersections and see which ones match exactly. So we have 113 here. 180 minus 113 gives us 67 for this, which means this is also 67. I see another 67 over here, so I'm going to go ahead and do this one too. And we have a 110 here. So 110, this should be 70, and this should be 70 as well. So if we look here, the only intersections that match are B and D. So that means that B is parallel to D only. Okay? And so that would be answer choice C. All right, next up, number 10. It says, based on the diagram, determine which lines are parallel with the correct justification. So if we look here, we have these 2 angles here. Remember the little semicircles means that those two angles are congruent. And specifically what we're looking for here, these are alternate exterior angles. They're on the opposite sides of the transversal. So we know that we can immediately rule out A and D because they use corresponding. So we know it can't be A and D. Now we need to determine if W is parallel to U or X is parallel to Y. Well, which combination are these angles attached to? Are the angles attached to X and Y, or are they attached to W and U? And we should see pretty clearly that the angles are attached to X and Y. So that would mean that X is parallel to Y because of the alternate exterior angles theorem. All right. Number 11, it says if R is parallel to S, which of the following must be true? So R is parallel to S. Well, R is parallel to S, that means that the intersections will match exactly. So if you want to, you can just fill out the intersections and then match and see which ones match up. So A is a linear pair, so 180 minus 52 gives us 128. B are same side exterior angles, so they would be supplementary, which means B is 128. D would be 128 because it's vertical from B. And C would be 52 because it's alternate exterior with that 52-degree angle. So now you just see it says A is 52, that won't work. B is 128, we wrote that, so that one's good. C is 128, D is 52. So we see that B equals 128 has to be our answer. Number 12, if lines X and Y are parallel, what is the value of Z? Well, here's the tricky thing about these, right? You need to make sure you're paying attention to which ones it says are parallel, okay? A and B are not parallel. It doesn't say anything about A and B being parallel in the problem. It only says X and Y, okay? So that means that you're looking at which transversal you're dealing with. Are you dealing with the intersections for transversal A or the intersections for transversal B? Well, we see that Z is attached to transversal B, so we know these intersections are the same. So these intersections are the same. Okay? So that means if we fill out our intersections here, we get 96, 84, 84. And that means that Z would have to be 84 because it's corresponding there. Okay, these intersections would be exactly the same, so 84 would have to be Z, so A. The other way you could have done that was just take 180 and subtract 96. However, do you notice that all four of the possible answers that you could get reasonably are on this answer choices? Okay, so make sure you watch out for that. All right, number 13, what is the value for X so that C is parallel to D? So again, we're trying to see what X equals, so we need to determine whether these angles would be congruent or if they would be supplementary. Well, one's an obtuse angle and one's an acute angle, but we could also say, hey, this is 110. So I know that would have to be 110. So we know that 110 and 10X are supplementary. Well, supplementary means add to 180. They sum up to 180. So we take 110 plus 10x and set it equal to 180. Subtract 110 from both sides, and we get 10x is equal to 70. Divide both sides by 10, and we get that x is equal to 7. And if you plug in 7 here, you get 10 times 7, which is 70, and 70 plus 110 does equal 180, so we did it correctly. Okay. All right, next up. Next up, number 14. Number 14 says, below is a diagram showing parallel lines G and H cut by transversal K. Choose all correct angle relationships based on the diagram above. So we're going to go through each statement one by one. So angles 7 and 8 are supplementary angles. Well, if we look at 7 and 8, right? 7 and 8 are corresponding angles. But corresponding angles are congruent, not supplementary. So we know the first one can't be correct. Next one, angles 1 and 8 are alternate exterior angles. So 1 and 8 are here. We see that they're both in the exterior. And we do see that they're on opposite sides of the transversal. So we're good bubbling that one in. Next one, angles 5 and 8 are corresponding angles. 5 and 8, they're both on the same side, so that checks out. But one needs to be in the interior and one needs to be in the exterior. But in this case, 5 and 8 are both in the exterior. So they aren't corresponding, they would be consecutive exterior angles. Next one, angles 4 and 3 are corresponding angles. 4 and 3 are on the same sides of the transversal. One's in the interior and one's in the exterior. So they are corresponding. So we can go ahead and bubble that one in. Next up, angles 2 and 3 are consecutive interior angles. So we have 2 and 3. Remember that consecutive means the same thing as same side. Are these on the same side? Yes, they're on the same side of the transversal, and they're both in the interior. So 2 and 3 are consecutive interior angles. Next one, angles 4 and 1 are alternate exterior angles. So remember, alternate means opposite sides, but we see that 4 and 1 are on the same side. So we know that this one cannot be true. Next one, angles 5 and 4 are vertical angles. And if we look at our angles 5 and 4, they're on different intersections, which immediately tells us no, they are not vertical. 5 would be vertical with 3. Okay, and 4 would be vertical with 6, but not 5 being vertical with 4. And then finally, angles 5 and 2 are supplementary angles. If we look at 5 is an obtuse angle, 2 is an acute angle, so yes, they would have to be supplementary. Okay. All right, next up, number 15. In the figure shown, line T is a transversal of parallel lines C, D, E, and F. What are the values of X and Y? So there are two ways you could go about this. You could fill out all the intersections, or you could fill out this intersection and then match it up with this, or you can use angle relationships. I'm just going to use angle relationships, but the easier way is to do intersections. So if we look at X and 38, X and 38 are on the same side of the transversal, and they're both on the interior. You know, if you drew a box here, they would both be in the interior. So that means that they are same side interior angles. So that means that X has to equal 180 minus 38, which is equal to 142. Then if we look at Y, well, Y, if we know that X is 142, X and Y are alternate interior angles, they have to be congruent as well. So that means that Y is also 142, which is D. So make sure, just because you think they should alternate or whatever else, sometimes your answer choices will indeed have both of them matching. So make sure you watch out for that. And again, the other way you could have done that, 38 degrees, 142, 142. Y matches up with 142. X matches up with 142. All right, next one, number 16. In the diagram, R is parallel to S. It says if the measure of angle 10 is equal to 13x minus 35, and the measure of angle 11 equals 3x plus 7, what is the measure of angle 11? Well, if we look at angle 10 and angle 11, we see that they are same side interior angles. So that means they have to be supplementary. So setting up our equation, we add them together, 13x minus 35 plus 3x plus 7 equals 180. 13x plus 3x is 16x. Negative 35 plus 7 is negative 28, equal to 180. Add 28 to both sides, and that gives us 16x equals 208. Divide both sides by 16, and we get that x is equal to 13. We are not done yet, though. What it wants is the measure of angle 11. So the measure of angle 11 is equal to 3x plus 7. And that x value we just got, we're going to have to plug in here. Okay? So the measure of angle 11 has to equal 3 times 13 plus 7. 3 times 13 is 39 plus 7. So that means the measure of angle 11 is equal to 46 degrees. And on a quiz or a test, if I do it online, you know, normally you just have to type in the number. So you just type in 46 and leave off the degrees. All right, next one, number 17. If y is parallel to z and the measure of angle 4 equals 97 degrees, what are the measures of the remaining angles in the diagram? So 97 here. Well, angle 1 is a linear pair, so we know angle 1 has to equal 180 minus 97. And 180 minus 97 gives us 83. The measure of angle 2 is vertical from the measure, or angle 4, so that means they have to be congruent. And then angle 3 and angle 1 are vertical, so that means they have to be congruent. I don't know why I wrote an 81 there. Okay, next up, measure of angle 5. Well, the measure of angle 5, I mean, these intersections match because these are parallel, but angle 5 is corresponding with angle 1, so that means it's 83. Measure of angle 6 is a linear pair, but it's 97. It corresponds. 7 corresponds with 3, so it's the same as 3, which is 83. And 8 is the same as angle 2, which is 97. Okay. Number 18, lines R and S are cut by a transversal. What value of X will show that line R is parallel to line S? Well, what type of angles are these? Well, these are same side interior angles. So they are supplementary. Okay, if they're supplementary, that means we add them together and set them equal to 180. So 3x minus 6 plus 2x plus 11 equals 180. 3x plus 2x gives us 5x. Negative 6 plus 11 gives us 5, equal 180. Subtract 5 from both sides, and we get 5x is equal to 175. Divide both sides by 5, and we get that x is equal to 35. And that's our answer. Okay, so the key to these is just keep, just identify what type of angles you have, and then tell whether they're supplementary or congruent, and then set up your equation and solve. Number 19. Number 19 says, look at the diagram given below. Next to each angle pair, write the correct angle relationship. So A says angle 11 and 15. Well, 11 and 15 are on the same side of the transversal, and they're also both in the exterior. So these are consecutive exterior angles. You could also write same side exterior. B, angle 1 and 16. Angle 1 is here, angle 16 is here. They're both in the exterior, but they're on opposite sides of the transversal. One's above it and 16's below it. So these are alternate exterior angles. C, 4 and 8. 4 and 8 are both on the same side of the transversal, but 4 is in the interior while 8 is in the exterior, so that makes them corresponding. Angle 7 and 9. 7 and 9, both of them are in the interior of the two lines, and then they are both on the same side of the transversal, so that makes them consecutive interior angles. Angles 12 and 15. 12 and 15 are both on the same side of the transversal. One's on the inside in the interior, one's on the exterior, so that means they are corresponding. And then finally, angle 1 and angle 5. Angle 1 and 5 are on the same side of the transversal. One's inside, one's outside, so that means they're also corresponding. And then finally, number 20, line Z is a transversal for lines K, L, M, and N, which is not parallel to the other three. So what we're going to be doing is looking for the one that does not match the other three intersections. So if we fill these out, 92, 88, 88, 88, 92, 92, 92, 88. And you can tell just by looking at it which one has a different angle measure. And we see that the one that is the odd man out is line L. So L does not match. So it's not parallel. Okay. I hope this video helped, guys. Remember, you do have a test. I'm posting this so that you guys can, even if you didn't get finished in class, you can still go back and look over this stuff and get everything in order. Okay. Be prepared for the test. The test is mostly multiple choice. It's, not as demanding as this. This has a lot more short answers, but the test has a lot more multiple choice. I think there might be 2 short answer ones, maybe something like that. Okay. But anyway, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me, join the Zoom sessions. We are going to be going over this in class, some of it in class today. So I want to make sure that everybody's aware of that. Okay. Thanks, guys. And I will see you in the next video.